Hello, this is Don Hall, and this is Don Hall Works YouTube channel, and I am in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and at the studio Hands on Clay with the owner-operator, Jackie Pavlik, and she's going to demonstrate for us some work she does with porcelain. Say hello, Jackie.
Well, thank you, Don, for coming to the Land of Enchantment. It's lovely to meet you. Sounds like a wonderful idea. Hi, I'm Jackie Pavlik. I'm a ceramic artist. I've been doing ceramics for about 30 years, and today we'll be doing a demo on building with porcelain.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hi, so we're going to be doing a slab for our porcelain vase. I'm going to start with a rather thin porcelain slab. Put my other work aside. And then I'm going to try to achieve a piece of slab that is going to be about 8 inches in height and about 13 inches in diameter in order for me to get the length that I need for my vase. So now that I've cut my slab, I'm going to roll it out with the roller, with the pin roll, and I'm going to roll it several times to achieve the thickness that I want. I'm going to spray and roll to maintain the moisture in the clay. It's going to take several tries to get the thickness that I want. It's beginning to stick to the roll because it's getting moisture and thinner, and it's trying to find a surface to hold on to. Porcelain is very pasty. As thin as I can take it. So you see here in the edges is getting thin, but it's still not thin enough. I really want it to be very, a 1/16 of an inch. So when you're working with porcelain, you got to remember that anything that you do is going to stay in the body of the clay. So you want to stay as even as possible. All right, I think that we have the thinness that I want. You need to determine the circumference of your vase, and the way I do it is I take a measuring tape and go around the form that I'm looking to make, and I go over a little bit, like this one is 13, I will go to about 14 inches. So my slab is going to be 14 inches in width, and I'm going to go about 8 or 9 inches in height. So the next step is I'm going to cut the slab. I'm going to cut my slab. I want to make sure that my slab is nice and smooth. I'm going to smooth out the rim. These are the ends that I'm going to attach my slab, so I'm going to thin this part. So when it meets to the other side, this will be thin and it will end up being about the same width. Always measure, 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 measure. I'm going to flip my slab and do the same thing that I did on the other end, thin it out. This is where the slab is going to connect. I'm going to test the circumference of my slab. You always want to make it a little bigger because you don't want your slab to stick to the tube. So I'm going to cut it a little bit more here. Now that I've determined that my slab is the right height and the right width, I am going to add my design. In order to avoid trailing of the clay as you're carving onto your piece, I like to use a piece of plastic that you can lay over onto your slab. Smooth it gently. And I would slide my image under. And then I'm going to use this ball pen tool to go over with my design right here. Now that I finished tracing my design, you can see it is right in here. I'm going to go and lightly give it a little touch where my design didn't quite transfer, and this I call it freehand. And this is just giving it your own sort of touch. Just wherever you see that there might be missing something. Now I'm going to take it and put it on my form. You can see how thin it is it? Kind of just wants to fly. I have a little bit of slip here. I'm going to lightly score one in, a very, very small amount. And I'm going to also score on this end. I have a brush. This is porcelain slip. And as you can see, I'm not using a lot. It's just a very small amount. When working with porcelain, you want to be very clean. I'm going to attach the bottom, the top and the bottom lightly. Just tap it. I don't want to squeeze too hard because I don't want it to stick to my form. Now that the form is out of my vase, I'm going to use another tube. I'm going to roll it in newspaper, kind of tightly. And I'm going to put it in my form. And the reason that I'm doing this is because the newspaper is going to be against the clay body, and then I'm going to press to connect my vase. And then the tube behind is giving me support so that my form does not collapse. And so you can see that the joint is very smooth and uniform. Now that we have joined our form, we're going to attach our base to its bottom. So I'm going to take the base and place it over the slab. I'm going to take my pin tool and go gently around, a very light touch, to establish the area where the circumference and where I'm going to then score again. I'm going to use the scoring tool and gently score around the perimeter of my vase. Going to add a little bit of slip. And now I place my form over the place that I slipped. I'm going to use my pin tool to cut, but I am not going to cut really close yet. I'm going to get as close as possible without really getting close to the body. I'm going to leave a tiny space. It's important to remember that if you place your slab on a piece of paper, you'll have a lot of mobility in your work. So by taking this extra clay, I'm going to have the freedom to lift my form as such and allow the seam to connect to the bottom slab. And then I'm going to go in the inner part of my piece and add a little bit of slip in the inside. And by lifting my form gently up and down, and the moisture that is inside the body of the form is flowing through the seams, through the edge of the bottom. And this is allowing the clay to connect to the lower slab. So now that I've waited a little while, my vase is a little more stable. I am going to cut the bottom. I'm going to use my pin tool, and then I'm going to get very close to the base, and I'm going to cut at a little bit of an angle. Staying close enough to the body, but not getting too close so that I don't cut too much clay from the base. So hold the tool against the body. Slide towards you, pull. I'm going to take it out of the newspaper so you can get a better view. Tool against the body, that prevents you from stabbing your work, which I've done it many a time. Turn. It's best not to go all the way at once, because if you make a mistake, you can come back. But you can always retouch. So slightly pull. As porcelain begins to dry, it becomes very pasty. And I'm going to show you here. It drags. I am putting a lot of pressure here. And you see it begins to crumble. So you want to do it slowly and with a sharp tool. And a little bit at a time. Turn. Until you get all around your work. When working with porcelain, you want to be very clean. No contamination. You want it to be as smooth as possible. Clean hands, because anything will reattach. I'm going to wet my hand just very lightly. I'm going to lift my piece. And just slightly go over with my finger with a tiny bit of water. Oh my God, it's so good. And there you have your vase. So now that I've finished working on my vase, and you can see it's only nicely done, smooth, there are no little pieces of clay all over, I'm going to put it aside and wrap it and let it dry. You want to cover it really well so that it does not crack, because it's going to dry very fast. So I'm going to bring another pot that I worked on previously, in which, using the same technique, I added some poppies. So I am going to demonstrate how to add a little bit of color to the vase. First, I'm going to add the black, and this is called the slip trailing technique. When you're using this, you don't want to go directly onto the pot. You always want to work at an angle. Squeeze at an angle, never straight, always at an angle. Once again, I want to emphasize how important it is to work in a clean environment. Just gently pull, and as you can see, I am almost leaning the bottle. Never straight forward. And you can be free to add any design that you want. If you want your slip trail to be a little bit freer than mine. I like to stay within the design that I created, but then once I start adding a color, it will be a little different. It's not going to be perfect. It's handmade, human made. So that's how I add the black. I'm now going to add a little bit of red underglaze. I'm going to go slightly over some of the black, and it's going to blend in, and it will show at the end when your pot is fired. So just gently. Glazes are not paint, so you have to make sure that you do not water them down too much. I personally like to do stroke in return, stroke in return. And if you want to thin it out a little bit, I like to do it on my pot, in which I then add a little water to my brush and I thin it out, and I will show you what I mean by that. So here I have a little bit of water, and I'm going to dip my brush in the water, and then I'm going to come back right here, and as you can see, it's a lot, my red is a lot lighter. And then I can add more red in that area and also go over wherever I am with a little bit of water over the glaze. So I'm doing it on the glaze rather than watering down the glaze in the dish. Now that I have waited a little while on my pot, I'm going to add a little bit of black onto this newly made pot. I'm going to follow the lines. This is the hydrangea design. And then I'm going to test a little bit of blue and this hydrangeas, a little bit of blue. And I want to do it while it's still damp because I want the colors to be very light. And then I'm going to go back with the black once it's a little drier in a very thin format. I'm not sure if you can see it, but the hydrangea has a little bit of a little over raised areas right here. So this is where I will go over with the black. It's a lot of work. So now that I finished painting the colors that I like in my flowers for the hydrangeas, I'm going to add a little bit of green. And as you can see, the vase is now much more closer to leather hard. And as you can see, I'm adding the green over the black. I'm using two greens, Froggy Green and the Spring Green. I'm just going to blend it in. And as it dries, the black will come through. You know, some of those hydrangea leaves can be very rich and deep. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a deeper green in the colors. Then I can come back with my black and sort of give it a little touch. You have the freedom to do anything you like. There's no right or wrong when making your own work, especially in clay. I'm now going to use this little pen tool, and I'm going to try to find the ridges where the flowers are, and I'm going to take a little bit, just kind of let it flow right throughout where I carved it. And what's happening, because this is going to be translucent, the light will come through those areas. Plus it gives your work a little definition there where you can see where the flower, the petals, defining the petals, as you can probably see. And I will come back and add a little red wherever I think I could use a little red. Just going to take a little bit of that green. And there you have the green and red. And the other side, I would do the blue side. And in this one, I will do the same thing. But you can see it a little more where I'm taking away a little bit of the clay. It's basically taking away the glaze. You're scoring away the glaze, and you can see that it gives the flower definition and also kind of makes it stand out a little bit more. Now that my pot, that I've done my painting and my glazing, you can go back while your pot is still soft and you can gently push out here on the leaves, so wherever you did your design, and this will give a lovely 3D impression on your work. And there you have it, a porcelain vase with hydrangeas.